Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. We have Outback Goldfields presenting. We have CEO Chris Donaldson and Chairman Craig Parry. Before we get started, a couple things. First off, there will be forward-looking statements in this presentation. If you'd like to know more about those, you can check them out on the company's disclosure on their presentation on their website. And as always, there will be a Q&A period at the end, so feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box. And with that out of the way, I'd like to introduce Chris and Craig. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
Chris is a first-time Adelaide victim, but Craig's used to our abuses at this point. So thanks for joining us. Yeah, an exciting new company. Yeah, tell us about the assets you picked up, a bit of your own background, and walk us through the presentation.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, so thanks for having us on. I'm Chris Donaldson, CEO. I came on in October, and Craig, who is our chairman, brought me on to help run what at the time was a shell company. You know, so we're a relatively new company, but we've done quite a bit here in what, about 5 months. So you know, Craig and I have known each other for about 6 years. He moved back from Australia, and our kids went to school together. We've been looking for a project to do, and this kind of ticked every box that I was looking for. I was previously with Western Copper and Gold for the last 8 years, running their corporate development, and was looking to go and run something on my own, and excited that this is what came about. So Outback Goldfields, we trade on the Canadian Stock Exchange under the symbol OZ or OZ in Frankfurt, and we just on Friday got our listing on the OTC QB under OZBKF. So pretty excited about that. So so new company, we acquired 4 incredible assets from a publicly listed company in Australia called Petrotherm. And Petrotherm had the foresight to see the incredible happenings in the Victorian Goldfields when Fosterville or Kirkland Lake made an incredible discovery of the Swan Zone. And so it started a new staking rush in the area. They 5 years ago assembled a land package of 4 assets, and we were able to acquire those in October through the relationships that Craig had with the financial backers of Petrotherm. So Petrotherm, great geologist, but saw that perhaps there's a better opportunity to have these assets in a Canadian or North American vehicle, and specifically wanted Craig and his team to run them. Craig's had, you know, quite a bit of success recently and in the past, but most recently with the, you know, Skeena Resources, ISOEnergy, Gold Bull, Viszla that he's a part of. And so we acquired these assets in November, did a raise, aimed to raise $6 million. It was very successful. We ended up raising 11.4 million. We renamed the company and assembled a great team and started drilling about a month ago. So we're just getting going, but things are starting to happen for us here. So Deb went through the disclaimers. So if you are going to make an investment, please read this. So what do we have? So we have 4 parcels of land in and around the Fosterville mine in Victoria in Australia. And of course, the Fosterville mine is known to be the highest grade and highest margin mine in the world. It's owned by Kirkland Lake, and there's an interesting story of how that went about that maybe Craig could tell later. But so we're in the right jurisdiction. It's certainly tier 1, and there's a tremendous amount of activity that's going on right now. For a company of our stage, we've got a very experienced board with a track record of success. We're following a path of that other companies, specifically Fosterville South, have done and had quite good success at as well. We're at an attractive entry point. We'll go through the shares. Certainly the market has not been kind over the last little bit. We're at about or just below the price that we did our financing at. So if you are looking to make an investment, I think it's a fairly attractive time. We have all of our good news yet to come ahead of us here. And once we start getting some drill results, which we anticipate in about a month, we should have a steady stream every other week or so for the balance of the year, because we're fully funded for a pretty extensive program here. A little bit about the board. I talked about Craig with Viszla and Skeena and so forth. Oda Halley's our CFO. He was former CFO with Endeavour Mining and controller with Yamana Gold and Pan American Silver. Many of you might know Louis Archambault from Orezone. He's in the process of building a mine in Africa. He was former corporate development with Gold Corp. Eric Zoncherb came on the board, also a geo. So we've got two geos on the board, Craig and Eric. Eric's well known in the mining community. He was previously with Canaccord running their research division. So happy to have him on board and part of our technical guidance team as well. And recently we brought Penny Jaski on. This is someone who Craig's known for a number of years back when they both worked at Rio. She was 15 years at Rio running at a senior level, running their community relations and so forth. So she had taken time off to be with her family, and happy that she's coming on and making sure that we're doing everything properly on the ground in Australia. So, one of the challenges, in this day and age is travel. And so this was one of my concerns early on is how do we get the technical team in Australia together? Thankfully, we were able to retain Peter Reed, who is a founder and chief geologist at Petratherm. He's the one who's been working on these properties for a number of years. So he's our senior technical advisor in Australia, and we've built out a team with him. Specifically, we brought on Matt Hernan, who's running the programs right now. He actually lives on one of our tenements. He was 10 years at the Ballarat mine. So he's definitely local and has very good knowledge of the area. So happy to have him. He's brought out a team. I think we've got about a dozen people on the ground right now, and I couldn't be more pleased to have that. And complementing that team is Chris Leslie, who's up in Canada with us, but he actually was in Australia, had to come home because of COVID. He had been down in Melbourne doing his PhD at Codes, or finishing off his PhD at Codes, which is in Tasmania. He had worked in Victoria, and so he's a good quarterback for us up here, and obviously consulting with the Australian crew as we're doing the drill program now. So a little bit of our share structure. Right now, we've got just under 60 million shares that are out. We've got warrants from the financing that are $1.50. The hold on that financing just came off a week ago. So we've seen a little bit of liquidity in the last, 2 weeks. We're at about 50 cents right now. And again, the financing was done at 60 cents. So our market cap around just about 40 million or so. And our cash on hand, we got about $10 million. And we're estimating putting about 6 million of that into the ground this year. So Australia, obviously tier 1 jurisdiction, mining friendly. Historically Victoria's has been a bit of a challenging area, but they made great strides with their traditional ownerships and essentially setting out an ownership or a royalty structure. So they have a very clear permitting system now. Like I said, we've been able to access workers, and in the area, it's definitely a mining town, and that goes back to the mid 1800s, and virtually year-round drilling. The story of Victoria, which is interesting, is in the 1850s, it was actually a prolific mining jurisdiction. So, and as you can see here, between about 1850 and 1920. There was tremendous ounces coming out of the ground, almost 80 million at that point. And that made Australia the richest country in the world. And they were mining this, near or at surface alluvial gold. And they did that with quite a bit of success until about 1920. And then it really, not a lot had happened in Victoria until Fosterville or Kirkland Lake came and made that incredible discovery in 2015. That has kicked off a new gold rush, or the second gold rush. And what they did is essentially went below covers. So they went deeper and found different type of mineralization and ultra high grade. So there's a new lens that's being applied to the district in modern exploration techniques. So which is what's really fueled this new gold rush. And what we're all going for is what they have. So this is a swan zone. It's over 2 million ounces at 50 grams per ton. It's about as good as you get. And I'm stealing Craig's line here that he often ends with, but I'll put it in here. When you're looking at evaluating exploration projects, there's 3 criteria that he's used, and I think this goes back to his Rio days, and he's passed on to me, is what is the size of the prize, what is the cost of the test, and what is the chance of success. And in this case, the size of the prize is as good as it gets, and that's another swan zone. And the cost of the test, well, we're in a tier 1 jurisdiction. We've got workers that are on site and easily accessible. And the chance of success, well, it's a historic jurisdiction that's produced over 80 million ounces of gold at or near surface. And there has to be a fluid source for that. The geologists in the Victorian survey believe there's another 80 million yet to be discovered. So our 4 properties here, and so our 4 properties are what you see in orange. You've got Fosterville. Hopefully you guys can see my cursor here up in the right. So I'll start at the bottom. So we have 4 properties. Glenfine is the property that has had the most work done on it. It's the most drill ready. It's the one that is subject to our initial drill program, which is about 4,000 meters planned. Ballarat West is kind of indicative of the area. So despite the fact that, within 5 kilometers, you've got the Ballarat mine, Clunes, and another that have historically produced 17.5 million ounces of gold. Despite that being within 5 kilometers, Ballarat West is largely unexplored, and definitely underexplored. And the reason for that is subject to shallow cover. The cover's at about 10 to 80 meters, and simply they weren't able to go underneath that at that point. So we're expecting to get our exploration license on that Ballarat West property in a month, and I think Craig will expand on that afterwards. Our 3rd property is YEUNGROON up at the top here, and you can almost divide that into 2 halves. So there's some northwest north-south faults that are going up to the Avoca fault, which splits the property. On one side, we've got an area that actually is subject to a number of mine sites, and we have some targets identified, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then on the other side, it's the same as Ballarat West, largely unexplored, with the exception of one area which produced about 1,400 ounces at 250 gram per ton. So we're definitely interested in that. And our 4th property is probably the flashiest, and that's Silver Spoon, and it's flashy because it touches Kirkland Lake, which is what you see in blue on one side. It's about 10 kilometers from Fosterville and about 5 kilometers from Costerfield. On the other side is Newmont. Newmont got attracted to the area and acquired some land about 2 years ago. And what is interesting about the area right now is this shaded area in red. And so this is what they call the North Central Victorian ground release. And it is an area that's owned by the Victoria government that's up for auction. And rumor has it that it's about a $50 million earn-in to acquire that piece of land. That's something that, is out of our league at this point, but is likely going to be a mid-tier or a major that comes in. So we're supposed to hear in March, it's the government that's doing it. So maybe that's getting pushed till April. But certainly a lot of excitement in the area, and we'll set the value of the area, of land in the area here just shortly. So the good thing about, Fosterville, it's high grade, but they're chewing through it fairly quickly. So they have really ramped up their exploration and have committed to exploring, putting $90 million into the ground, into what you see in blue this year. So if if you add up what we're putting into the ground, what was going on in the tender, and what they're going to be asked to put into the ground, plus Kirkland Lake and the other juniors that are in the area, there's easily $200 million of exploration going to go on what you see on the map here. So obviously we hope that we're the next ones to get the next big discovery. But the reality is, if anybody makes a discovery, all boats should float here. So I'll talk a little bit about the projects, and Craig, if you want to chime in now or afterwards, feel free. This is our Glenfine project, which we started drilling on. I think we're on our fourth or fifth hole. We're starting underneath and adjacent to the Glenfine South mine. This is a mine that had produced over 40,000 ounces at 16 grams per ton. There'd been some recent drilling that you see on the side here at an area called Reef 2, which is about 100 meters off. And we're drilling underneath Glenfine and in between to see if there's some continuity between the two. If there is, maybe we could put a little resource around that. So I've just cut core, and I think we're going to be sending that off for assays here in a month. And then we'll do another, the other half, so 2,000 meters at Glenfine, 2,000 meters at British Banner. We'll start on that when we can get a second rig here in a couple of weeks. It's had some pretty good intercepts that you can see, a gram at 23 grams, and you've got almost 4 grams at 9 gram per 4 meters at 9 gram per ton, and that's on the contact of the basal dome there, and it's open in all directions. So we'll be following that up in about a month. And YEUNGROON, I talked a little bit about that. So you've got the Wedderburn area. What you see here are historic mine sites. We've got 6 high tenor arsenic anomalies that we're anxious to get on. We're working on access right now on that, probably a month or two away from being able to get onto the properties. And the area here is farmland. So there's, it's owner operator farmland. It's generally canola fields, fairly easy access in most of our areas. So that'll be the Wedderburn area. And then the other side of the property is, we're really focused around Golden Jacket. So we've got the Avoca Fault that comes right up through the property. And then we've got a regionally significant additional fault, which is the Golden Jacket Fault. Right here. So the Golden Jacket mine was the 1,400 ounces at 250 grams per ton. We've just completed our airborne magnetic survey. We're evaluating the data on that, and we're prepping to do some RAB drilling to really get a better understanding of the targets in and around that Golden Jacket mine. So our third property here is Silver Spoon. Again, we don't have the exploration license on that. We hope to get that in a month or so. It's the one that's nestled in between Newmont and Kirkland Lake. You can see Costerfield and Fosterville as well. It's got some anomalies on that we're anxious to get on. We're interested to see what happens with our neighbors and the auction. And once we get the exploration license, we'll work on this one here. So the fourth property we have is Ballarat West, and as you can see, there's been a ton of deposits and mining adjacent to it, and there has been some historic alluvial production on our property, but largely it's underexplored. So I know this is Craig's at the top of his list. So I don't know if you want to chat about it now, Craig, or wait till we're done and we can kind of come back.
I might chime in there, Chris, because I am excited about that one. I'm excited about the entire portfolio that we've got there. And as Chris has outlined, we inherited, by doing that deal with our friends at Petrotherm, we've inherited first mover advantage in what is, the hottest gold district on the planet today. The entire district, as Chris has said there, has produced over 80 million ounces. This recent recognition by Kirkland or Fosterville of this Fosterville type high-grade mineralisation at depth has opened up the entire district for a refresh, a recut of exploration, and that therein lies the opportunity. So we've got potential to find another Fosterville mine. Of course, Fosterville is probably the best gold mine on the planet today in terms of scale. It's all those things that Chris has mentioned there. You know, the low cost, low production cost, great rate of production, a fabulous mine. So there's an opportunity to find those in this district. I think we've got one of the very best exploration packages in the district because we've inherited that first mover advantage from Petrotherm, and some great projects, and of course, you know, we're drilling there, very active at the moment, and will be for the rest of the year. So there'll be huge news flow. My personal favourites in the portfolio, we're drilling at Glenfine. I think, you know, we're drilling around known mineralisation and within, you know, a chip and a putt of past production. So good chance of hitting good mineralisation there. Up at YEUNGROON, regionally important arsenic anomalies, and that's the key indicator for the gold potential beneath the soil on these projects in this district. So we've got regionally significant arsenic anomalies that represent outstanding walk-up drill targets. But perhaps the thing I'm most excited about, and the one that might take us longest to get to, but we'll endeavour to get there as quickly as we can and be drilling within the next 12 months, is this Ballarat West property. Within 5 kilometres of our property boundary there's been over 16 million ounces of gold produced, all from relatively shallow workings. Where I think the only reason a major gold deposit hasn't been found and mined on that Ballarat West property is that there's very shallow basalt cover on the northern half of the property. Where there is outcrop, there's been production, and on our property there's been over 400,000 ounces of production over the past 130 years. But until recently, no one's been effectively able to look under that shallow basalt cover. And you'll note there in the south, you've got the Ballarat mine to the east of us. In the south, you've got all of these red zones of mineralisation, key deposits that have been mined historically, and then that trend of mineralisation continues on into our ground, but it stops, part of the way up the property. Simply because of that basalt cover. Given that there's been 16 million ounces produced from 3 key deposits in that district, or in that within 5 kilometres of our property, and the fact that mineralised trend continues right on up through our property, to my mind, this is the best place left on the planet to find the next 5 million ounce gold deposit. So I'm incredibly excited by what we've got here. I can't wait to get in and see the team start exploring it. And I think, you know, Chris has built a fantastic team. And if there is a deposit of that scale and potential there, then we'll absolutely find it. We've got the team to do that. So I'm very, very excited about all of our projects, but particularly that one, Chris.
Perfect. Thanks, Craig. So yeah, I mean, you know, we've done a lot so far in completing the acquisition and raising our money, getting the drill program going, and most proud of just the team we put together. Airborne surveys are, you know, the first one is complete. Another month we should have both the exploration license, and then that'll take us to about May, June, and we'll sit back and see what we have so far, and then really rank and prioritize what we want to do for phase 2. So roughly our phase 1 till about June or the summer will be about $3 million, and we'll probably deploy about another 3 going forward. And a little bit of just about the opportunity here. So, I mean, I did this in March 2nd, and it's been a tough month, I think, for the whole basket. So you probably want to take 20% off almost everybody here. But the point of this is, you know, we're just getting going. You know, some of these companies are several years ahead, but we should, you know, there's no reason we shouldn't float into that mix. Our properties are, you know, obviously I'm biased, but they're every bit as good in what I would consider, some of them are the prime or premier properties in the area. So we certainly have room to run. If we catch lightning in the bottle, like Fosterville did last year, if you remember, it was actually a tough March as well. And they IPO'd, and I don't know the exact date, but, you know, mid-April, I think it was. And they went on a great run. They had some good results. They marketed well, and gold caught a tailwind. And they got up to about a 300 million market cap. They've since had a spin out and still are around 150 range right now. So a pretty good success story. So certainly a lot of upside. And just to summarize, I mean, I think we're ticking the boxes. Everybody always says, you're ticking the boxes, and we're in the right area. The majors are moving in. Minor or junior companies are also scrambling to get resources. We've been lucky to have properties that were acquired 5 years ago, so we've got that first mover advantage. It's an old jurisdiction that has a new lens looking into it, right? So. I mean, I think the opportunity is there for, as Craig said, a multi-million ounce deposit. We've got as good a chance as anybody in any part of the world to do that. So that would be our number one gold. And number two would be somebody adjacent to us hits relatively soon and puts renewed interest in the area as well. So with that, happy to answer some questions here.
So my first question is, we've seen a lot of activity over the last 5 years in this region, and you alluded to what happened with Kirkland Lake and the Fosterville mine, but can you explain in more detail exactly what's changed in this area and what's made people so excited about it?
Yeah, I can handle this one. Yeah, I mean, what's changed is many people thought the area was done, and it actually had been quite difficult mining. And Craig certainly knows the history there, and I'll deflect to him in a second there. But it was quite difficult mining because it was big nuggety gold, hard to put a resource around. They would hit have amazing results on one hit and then hit dusters on the next. So it was actually until Kirkland Lake went deeper and found that Fosterville and an epizonal mineralization, that it was a new lens that was looking at the new opportunity. And the Geological Survey of Victoria has done a ton of work trying to understand the new structures and a new way of exploring. And most of that is at depth and below cover. So, I mean, Craig knows the history there. He certainly knows the history of Fosterville, and it's actually kind of an interesting story how he got into these projects and some of the unfinished business, as he said, he has in the area.
Yeah, absolutely. And fantastic question, Deb. It's one of the great gold producing districts of the world, of course. And as Chris has said, back when gold was discovered, Australia very quickly became the richest country on the planet. I don't think it's there anymore, unfortunately, but that district has produced over 80 million ounces of gold up until about World War II, and then things very quickly dropped off because the production then got below the water table. Producing conditions became very, very difficult, and it wasn't until that, and I'd visited. I lived in Melbourne, of course, and visited that Fosterville mine a number of times. It always blew me away that these guys were making, double preg robbing, very sort of narrow underground mining at about 4 grams per tonne work. It always impressed me. I got the opportunity back in about 2014-15 to look at buying the Crocodile assets, which included this and a number of other mines in the Northern Territory. And I brought together some funding, and it ended up, I got beaten by Doug and Blaine at Newmarket. And so for me, a bit unfortunate because, of course, 6 weeks later, they sunk that drill hole in and found that new Swan Zone. And now that's become, it's gone from being one of the most challenging gold mines on the planet to one of the very best gold mines on the planet. And I sort of missed it as the underbidder. So unfinished business there. Fast forward 5 years, and my friends who were the major shareholders of Petrotherm came along and offered us the opportunity to acquire what I think is probably the very best package in a junior's hands in this district. we jumped at the chance. So I've got an opportunity to sort of make amends to me and my investors by getting back in and exploring these fantastic properties, and the recognition of this swan zone type Fosterville type mineralisation. The fact that opens up the entire district for a new cut of exploration is fantastic. I liken it a little bit to what the discovery of the Arrow deposit in the Athabasca Basin's done for Athabasca exploration for uranium. At NextGen, we discovered the Arrow deposit, basement-hosted deposit, had never previously been recognised in that district. And I think Arrow is now recognised as the best uranium deposit ever discovered. Well, here we have the opportunity to do the exact same thing. In the case of NextGen and Arrow, what we've done at ISOEnergy, it was a bunch of Australians coming over to Canada and enjoying that exploration success we've had. Here it's a bunch of us Canadians heading back to Australia and stealing what they've the potential that they've got. So I'm excited about that as well.
It seems like all the best Australian geos keep leaving. Maybe that's why it's not a world-class gold producer anymore, Craig. But it's nice to see you going back home and adding some value there. Just talking a little bit more about the claims in the area, I understand that there's more concessions that are up for option. Is that correct? In the region? I thought I read somewhere that the Australian government was allowing more staking in the region. And are you going to be participating in that?
Yeah, I mean, the one that's getting all the attention right now is this major block that I talked about, right, which is in and around Fosterville. It's actually 4 different claim blocks that have been put together, so maybe multiple people coming into it. I'll be surprised if Kirkland Lake doesn't take the one immediately around that mine, but we'll wait and see. And as for us, that's probably a little pricey for us at our stage right now. We're pretty happy with what we have. I mean, we've got a large land package, about 1,100 square kilometers so far. Never say never. We'll entertain anything, and if it makes sense for us and the shareholders, and maybe we'll look at some other land. But at this point, we're pretty happy with the package we have.
Got it. I think Vanessa had some questions as well.
I have a bunch. I'll prioritize. Hi, guys. I wonder how you are going to approach, Chris, you mentioned magnetic surveys, but how are you going to look under this thin layer basalt that you've described?
Yeah, Craig, we'll defer to you on that one there.
Yeah, so exploring under that basalt cover, actually relatively straightforward. In that it drowns out a lot of the potential geophysical approaches, or that cover prevents looking geophysically under the cover. So that's a little bit of a challenge. But what's happened in recent years is explorers like Chalice in the northern part of the district have been looking under both basalt cover and deeper alluvial cover and more recent tertiary cover by doing roadside RAB drilling. And what you're looking for when you do roadside, of course, RAB drilling, very, very cheap form of exploration. You can effectively drill on the sides of roads without, a major permitting process. You put the material, the spoil and samples from the roadside RAB drilling back down the hole, and so you can very quickly and effectively and cheaply refurbish any drill pads that you do. And so you can go along those roads, and what you're looking for when you drill those holes is one of 2 things. You're looking for either direct detection of gold, so gold anomalism, or the other key indicator is arsenic anomalism. And as you go, you can build up something of a picture, a map of arsenic and gold anomalism under that cover by doing that effectively. So you can cover a very large area very quickly by sampling down to the bedrock, down to the basement, and seeing what's in there. There's a couple of other techniques that have come along. Of course, going forward, we will do geophysical work, particularly magnetics, to look at identifying structures. And as you saw on that Ballarat map, you see it at Fosterville. There's a strong structural component to this mineralisation. And so being able to map those structures out with magnetics, for example, is very, very important. So we can do that. And then there's another direct detection technique that's happened in recent years, led by the CSIRO, Australia's sort of peak research body, and that is gold anomalism in groundwater. And that's identified a number of significant anomalies, and that provides something of a direct detection technique. Once you find that anomaly, you'll then drill around that anomaly to identify mineralisation in a deposit. And again, at Ballarat West, right between Clunes and Ballarat, and sitting on our property, is again a regionally significant gold in groundwater anomaly. So, we've got a direct walk-up drill target there to test as well. But that, the key technique nowadays is roadside RAB drilling.
And the chasing of the arsenic does that apply then to all of the projects?
Absolutely. Yep. Particularly in soils or colluvial material at surface, you want to. There are, of course, like any deposits, there are a suite of elements that you can go after, but those arsenic anomalies have a good track record of resulting in discovery and mineralisation. The arsenic anomalies that we have at YEUNGROON, for a very modest amount of arsenic, down below 100 ppm is significant and anomalous in this district. At YEUNGROON, I think we've got one of the anomalies there is north of 1,000 ppm arsenic. So that's
3,000.
Sorry, 3,000, Chris. Yeah, very good. So that, of course, is highly anomalous. It represents a very good walk-up drill target, particularly when it's considered that those anomalies are around some known mineralisation. So we've got walk-up drill targets there to follow up.
Excellent. And are there any special ESG considerations in this part of the world?
No, I think ESG is a big consideration everywhere in the world right now. So there's nothing over and above in that area, and we've certainly brought on one of the best, if not the best, that we could find with Penny Jaski to help us with those concerns. But a lot of my previous job was on the community side. It's the one thing that can stop a project in its tracks. So we're very cognizant of that, and it's all about communication and understanding the particular needs of the community and making sure they understand where you're coming from and keeping the dialogue open and doing what you say you're going to do and not leaving a footprint when you're done. So no, there's nothing really abnormal about the area, but it's just like in any modern mining, it's at the front of whatever you do. So, and I'll just add on to that because I see there's one question about COVID in the area, and COVID has not affected us so far in terms of the operation. It's affected my ability to travel there and our ability to travel there. If I had to, I could go and just do a 2-week lockdown and get in. But thankfully, actually, within the states, they're able to travel freely. We don't have a camp. People go home at night, and so we haven't missed any days for COVID, except for somebody having to, thinking they got the flu and having to do a COVID test, which came back negative anyways. So we've been very fortunate with that, and that's the benefit of being in an area, with resources and being personnel and assay labs right at, where we're drilling. So
excellent, thank you for that. I have another question. Deb, am I going to
go for it?
Here. I have, Chris, did I hear you mention that the Geological Survey believes the potential for another 80 million ounces?
That's what they said. I've got a few quotes on that. I've even heard higher, but I just watched a recent luncheon at the Melbourne Mining Club via Zoom here, and that's what they're claiming as well. So they think there's at least another 80 million yet to be discovered.
And is that to do with that epizonal awareness?
Yeah, the first 80 million that's been extracted essentially was primarily alluvial gold, and there has to be some kind of fluid source for that, which we the geologists believe is undercover, and that's what we're looking for.
Got it. Thank you.
80 million. I know, you know, we want to discover at least 10% of that 80 million.
All right.
That sounds good.
How many pairs of boots do you guys have on the ground there?
I think, you know, we've got one rig going. I think we've got about a dozen, 10 or 12 people going. We're anticipating a second rig here in a few weeks. So some have come on in advance of that. I mean, we've just really, I mean, we've come a long ways in a short period of time and getting you know, our core shack up and running and getting all the equipment and so forth. So yeah, like I said, we've got about a dozen on the ground in Australia, and then a small team up here as well.
And the drilling, what's it like on the ground? I've never been to Australia.
Well, we actually, if you go to our Twitter, I just posted a little video of the area. But I mean, they're fields. It's like canola farm fields and easy access. You can drive up to it. It's relatively flat, and you can, and you know, there is a fire season where you won't be drilling, but for the most part, you can drill mostly all year round. In times when there are crops, if you have to disturb some crops to get in and drill, you may have to pay compensation for that. But yeah, it's you know, I'm used to being up in the Yukon, and not to knock the Yukon, but this is very, very much different from that landscape.
Oh, I hope you can get there soon.
Well, me too.
Yeah.
Deb, do we have any other questions from the audience at this time?
I don't see any more audience questions, but I actually have a question for Craig. Talking about Ballarat, you source that as one of the targets that you're most excited about. Can you elaborate on that? And as you know, I'm not a geo, and whenever people talk about alluvial gold, I always wonder if there's a source. I'm sure that there's not always a source of alluvial, but is that part of your strategy?
Yeah, good question. Not really part of our strategy to go and find an alluvial deposit or a colluvial deposit. Of course, you know, there's a few distinct types of mineralisation that have been mined in the district. Of course, there's the alluvial, colluvial stuff, and this area, you know, not far from one of our properties, some of the biggest nuggets ever found on the planet have come from this district and not far from our property. So, you know, famous for that, but that's not what we're out there looking for. Of course, then there's that sort of Ballarat, Bendigo deep lead style mineralisation and saddle reef type mineralisation that has been incredibly prolific, and where a lot of that mineralisation or a lot of the gold in the district's been produced from, of course. They're interesting deposits, can be incredibly high grade and dense accumulations of mineralisation, but a little bit tricky to find and then put a resource around. But the real jewel in the crown is where this sort of government is talking about the potential, the future 80 million ounces in the district will come from, and that's really from this epizonal deeper mineralisation, which, you know, I liken to being the feeder zone for all of the other gold that's been found in the district. And I think the Swan Zone's the best example of that. Incredibly high grades. You know, they can be relatively, with that sort of grade, very modest sized deposits, but incredibly economically robust because of the very high grade nature of those deposits. So that's really what we'd love to find, is that style of deposit. But if we in the process stumble across, you know, a few million ounces of deep lead gold at 3 ounces per tonne, we won't be unhappy about that.
All right, thank you. And I understand that you've stepped down from a couple other corporate positions. Is that to focus on this?
Yeah, good question, Deb. That's right. I stepped aside as CEO of ISOEnergy a couple of weeks ago. Still on the board there and still involved, and very happy with what's going on there. We've got, you know, we've discovered, I think in the last 7 years, certainly the best uranium discovery. We've put out some spectacular drill results, of course, but we brought on board Tim Gabruch, Gabrick, from Denison to lead the charge there. And I've stepped away really to focus on what we're doing at Inventor Capital. Of course, Outback Goldfields is one of our key companies at Inventor. Fabulous story with a huge amount of exploration potential. I think, our chances of discovering a 1 million ounce gold deposit at Outback are extraordinarily high. We've got a number of other companies. I think Viszla Resources, Viszla's taking up a lot of my time at the moment. We're having some really spectacular success down at our Panuco project at Mexico. And I think, that will absolutely be a mine in the next couple of years, and worth your viewers and listeners to looking at that one. And we've got a couple of other companies there as well. I'm also the chairman of Skeena, of course, and Skeena's kicking real gold. And just to go back to the question on ESG, mission critical to everything we do. Chris, of course, is a great leader on the ESG front, having led Western Copper's efforts up in the Yukon and been the primary point of contact for communities and government. He'll be the same here with us in Victoria. And Skeena, I'm very proud to report that the guys there are doing a spectacular job, and we've got such a very strong relationship with the Tahltan First Nation up there. So, I'm thrilled to be part of that team and story as well.
Seems like you got a lot going on.
Fair bit. Well, the one I didn't mention is Gold Bull Resources. People should look at Gold Bull's results today. We bought the Sandman asset off Newmont. That's continues to deliver. We put out some spectacular numbers over the past week out of Sandman, and looking forward to Chris putting out some spectacular numbers out of our projects here over the next couple of months as well.
And Chris, sorry, go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh, I was just going to ask about the lab turnaround in Australia, where you're sending those samples and what that looks like.
Yeah, I've been told it's just under a month, so I'm going to sandbag and say a month or 6 weeks. But so far, actually, they haven't had the delays that I know a lot of other areas have had. So, like I said, I think next week we're going to ship off our first set of core and hope to have a turnaround within a month. Now that may change with all the exploration that has been planned, for the balance of the year. But so far, we've been told that it's going to be pretty reasonable. So happy about that.
And it's 4,000 meters that you're drilling?
Yeah, 4,000 is planned between now and say the end of May.
And remind me of your cash position. I know you went out to raise a smaller amount, but ended up having significant demand.
Yeah, in short, we've got a little over 10 million. Our phase one, which takes us to the summer, it should be about $3 million, and then we'll put an additional 3 million into the ground for the balance of the year. So we'll be fine for 2021 and be in a good position, to start 2022.
Right. Well, it's great to have that cash position right now, because as you know, the markets are not as good as they were at the end of the year last year for raising capital. So just wrapping up here, Chris, maybe you can give us a couple key milestones that are coming up, which I believe would probably be your drill results in early May. But maybe you can list them so investors know what to watch for, and maybe you can also tell us what you're looking for and how you're going to judge the program in terms of success.
Yeah, I mean we're drilling for gold, so that's that'll be our measuring stick there, right? So and that's the first thing to see is what's coming out of the ground at Glenfine. That'll be the first set of results. The second set will be what happens in YEUNGROON. Both those will be in the next few months, and as I mentioned, we'll then reevaluate where we're at, see what happened with that auction block, and what the value of our Silver Spoon land is, and who our new neighbor is, and we should have our exploration license for those other two properties, and then we'll start working on that through the summer and beyond. So. Like I said, so we'll have a steady stream of catalysts and news flow coming once we get our first set of results, which are about a month out. So the good news is we're well funded for the year. We've got a good, robust program. We're going to have results. Our neighbors and others in the area will have a steady stream as well. So yeah, I think that's what we need to look out for.
Well, it's exciting. You've definitely got an interesting land package there. I was surprised that you were able to scoop something so good, but it's obviously a credit to Craig's relationships in Australia. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some results. I wish you much success, Chris, as a first-time CEO. I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to seeing the results. And Craig, hopefully you get revenge here.
For sure. No, looking forward to that, Deb.
Is there anything that we missed? Anything else you wanted to cover in the session?
No, I think that was pretty good. Thanks, guys. And if anybody wants to talk directly, you can go to the website and contact me, or just go info at Outback Goldfields and come straight to me. So happy to chat with anybody. So thanks for the time.
Sure. Thank you very much. And everyone have a great day.